Hello everyone, my name is Judith and I'm your presenter for today's webinar, Mental Health at Work. Before we get started, just a little bit about who Acas are and what we do. So we provide employees and employers with free impartial advice on workplace rights, rules and good practice. We also offer training, and specifically if you're looking for training to help create a more inclusive workplace, then we have courses available to book now, and Karen is sending a link for you. We also help to resolve disputes, and our online advice is updated regularly, where you can find the latest information on sickness absence at work and other workplace advice for employers and employees. Our website has a number of free template letters, forms and policies for employers, HR managers and employees, which are free to download and use. So now let's look at what our webinar will focus on today. So we will be covering an introduction to mental health at work, supporting mental health and well-being at work, pressure, stress and burnout, supporting mental health in practice, and further support. So before we look at how to support mental health at work, we're going to explore what mental health is and how it can impact the workplace. The World Health Organization describes mental health as a state of mental well-being that enables people to cope with the stresses of life, realizes their abilities and learn well, work well, and contribute to their community. Our mental health affects how we think, feel, and act. Good mental health means that someone can generally think, feel, and react in ways that align with their wants and needs, whereas people going through a period of poor mental health might find that the ways they are thinking, feeling, or reacting are difficult to cope with and are making life challenging. This can impact them personally, but can also impact their relationships, their family, and their workplace. Mental health, just like our physical health, can fluctuate throughout our lives. Some people may not completely recover from mental illness, and some may have periods of poor mental health, and some may never experience mental ill health at all. So, overlooking the importance of supporting the mental health of your staff can have negative consequences to your workforce. For example, it can result in lost working days. And research by the Health and Safety Executive found that from the year 2022 to 23, stress, depression or anxiety accounted for 54% of all working days lost due to ill health. It can also lead to lower productivity from those who are at work due to presenteeism. This is where individuals continue to work even when ill. Presenteeism can also intensify the individual's poor mental well-being and lead to burnout, which we can explore later. There is also a risk of losing members of staff due to a lack of investment in managing mental health. This can result in costs to the business in terms of hiring and training, as well as a loss of valuable talent and experience. So poor management of stress and mental health problems at work can lead to conflict. These tensions occur particularly in cases where illness is invisible, such as with mental ill health. Conflict can occur if there are high levels of absenteeism and presenteeism due to workers' poor mental well-being, as other staff may feel overwhelmed by needing to take on additional responsibilities. Conflict also arises when individuals feel unsupported in the workplace, and Acas often see this through claims of disability discrimination. So it's clear that in terms of the impact on the workplace, employers must consider their legal responsibilities. And there are several pieces of legislation which are relevant here. The first of these we're going to cover is the Equality Act 2010, which defines a disability as a physical or mental impairment which has a substantial long-term adverse effect on someone's ability to carry out day-to-day activities. So depending on how much it impacts them, it is possible for someone's mental health condition to meet the Act's definition of a disability. The Equality Act protects someone with a disability from discrimination, harassment, and victimisation. And if you'd like to read more about these different types of discrimination, Karen is sending you a link to some Acas guidance in the chat function now. Employers should focus on the support and reasonable adjustments they can make rather than focusing on whether a person's condition is a disability. This means, as an employer, you must make changes to remove or reduce disadvantages related to someone's disability. For someone with a mental health condition, this could be a range of things from adjusting their working pattern to finding a different space to work from. What is required will depend on the condition and its effect on the individual, as well as what is reasonable for the organisation. So employers and workers should work together to agree and review reasonable adjustments over time, especially as we know mental ill health can fluctuate. A failure to make reasonable adjustments could lead to a claim of disability discrimination to an employment tribunal. So, in addition to the Equality Act, the Health and Safety at Work Act of 1974 provides the legal framework for an employer to ensure that physical and mental health, safety and welfare of employees are protected. And under the Management of Health and Safety at Work regulations of 1999, employers have a duty to assess the risk of stress-related ill health arising from work activities. And finally, employers have a common law duty of care, which means they must do all they reasonably can to support their workers' health, safety and well-being. These areas of legislation can be quite complex, but you can find links in the handout to relevant information, and if you have a specific query, you can contact the Acas helpline. So we're now going to look at how mental health and well-being can be supported at work. So as I mentioned previously, mental health can fluctuate throughout our lives. We can describe the state of our mental health as being on a continuum, with good mental well-being and health at one end and poor at the other. It is important to note that someone may not have a mental health diagnosis, but may still be experiencing poor mental health. On the other hand, someone may be diagnosed with a mental illness, but be currently experiencing good mental well-being. So the mental health continuum starts with the vertical axis, which reflects how we are feeling at any given time. The horizontal axis reflects where we have a mental health diagnosis or not. So we all exist somewhere on this axis, and both our well-being and mental health can move around in any given direction at different times in our lives. Mental health can also be influenced by a positive or negative life events or circumstances. The mental health continuum can be a useful concept for employers and managers, as if they can have a good idea where their staff are located on it, they can ensure that they are able to offer the right support and adjustments at the right time. So let's take a look at how individuals might fit into the continuum. We can see Jules has a diagnosis of generalized anxiety disorder. Jules has had therapy in the past and has developed strategies which help with managing their condition. Therefore, they are continuing experiencing a good level of mental well-being. So we've got Delilah, and Delilah does not have a mental health condition and has good mental well-being. Delilah works long hours and is under some pressure at work, however feels able to manage her stress levels and has a happy home life with her partner. So Catherine does not have a diagnosis but does have poor mental well-being and often finds she gets stressed and overwhelmed easily. This is affected by the fact she finds her job difficult and unrewarding. While stress itself is not a mental health condition, it can be very damaging, and prolonged stress can lead to mental health disorders. And we'll talk about stress in more detail in a moment. So Sufyan, finally, we have Sufyan, who has been diagnosed with depression and has poor mental well-being. He is finding it difficult to manage his depression, and there are personal circumstances that are adding to his poor mental well-being. So remember, all these people's positions on the continuum could change. For example, Jules and Delilah could experience difficulties in their work or personal lives, and as a result, their position on the axis could move. Equally, Sufyan could access therapy or medication to help him with his depression, and his mental well-being may start to improve. So we're going to come back to these people later in the presentation during the case studies. So as I've mentioned previously, employers have a duty of care towards their staff, alongside other legal responsibilities, and they must ensure that they are treating mental and physical health as equally important. However, it is crucial that the responsibility for mental health does not only fall to HR or the line manager. The Acas framework for positive mental health at work outlines how employers, managers and employees share responsibility for mental health and well-being, with the common goal of having a workplace that supports positive well-being and productivity for all. Action in relation to mental health should not only focus on mental ill health, but how we can collectively understand and manage the many factors that affect our own and others' mental health and well-being. So this can be achieved through employers being visibly committed to positive mental health across the workforce, managers who are informed and open to conversations with their staff, and individuals who are self-aware and ask for help when needed. If you're interested in exploring the Acas framework further, Karen is sharing a link to further information in the chat now. So, understanding the signs of poor mental health does not mean you should make assumptions or to try to diagnose mental health issues your staff may have. However, it is important to know your team and notice changes of behaviour. It's also important to note that not everyone will show obvious signs of poor mental health. Some possible signs at work can include changes in mood or usual behaviour, lack of control over emotions, appearing tired, anxious or withdrawn, changes in a standard of work or ability to focus on tasks, withdrawing, talking less and avoiding social activities, or talking more and jumping between topics, and an increase in sickness absence or being late to work. So this list is not exhaustive, and you can find further information about the signs you might spot from someone who is having difficulties in your handout. Noticing potential signs of poor emotional well-being can be the first stage of offering support, prompting you to check in and start a conversation about how an individual is coping. If you're interested in more in-depth training about the skills needed to support mental health at work, consider booking onto our 6-hour Skills for Managers course. So later in the webinar, we're going to choose one of you to tell the audience about mental health in your organisation. So there's no need to message or ask questions via the chat. We will select the person and give further instructions in a second on what we would like them to cover. They will have around a minute to talk to the other 700 delegates. So we, of course, wouldn't ask anyone to do that. However, this exercise demonstrates a stress reaction. Some of you may have felt nervous, others may have felt confused as it isn't something that you would expect in a webinar, and others may have felt angry. So many of you have had physical reactions such as a churning in your stomach or sweaty palms. These are all perfectly normal reactions and have been with us since primeval times. But if we are exposed to this reaction persistently and over a long period of time, it can do real damage to our physical and mental health. So, given the response you may have had thinking about presenting to the webinar audience without much warning, it may be easy for you to understand that experiencing stress in the workplace can have a fundamental impact on the way in which you work, relationships with colleagues, and even with family members and friends. Some pressures in our work and personal life is normal, and it often means that we perceive something as important and we want to deliver a successful outcome. We sometimes need a certain amount of pressure to keep us engaged and motivated, and it can help create goals and a challenge to work towards. However, when a person feels overwhelmed for a long period of time, they might experience a build-up of pressure. Over time, this build-up may feel unmanageable as our resources and energy to cope with it decrease. When we feel less able to cope, that pressure can turn into chronic stress. An example of the balance between pressure and potential positive or negative consequences is when there are staff shortages within a team and someone is asked to pick up more work than normal. So at first, this might seem like a positive challenge for the person to reorganise their workload and demonstrate their skills and assets. However, if the staff shortages are not filled and that person is picking up too much work over a long period of time, then this level of stress is not addressed. They could potentially reach a stage of burnout, which can cause physical and mental ill health. So in the 2024 Burnout Report, Mental Health UK stated that almost 1 in 4 adults feel unable to manage stress and pressure in their lives. They also report that 1 in 5 workers in the UK needed to take time off work due to poor mental health caused by pressure or stress in the past year. These statistics highlight the importance of employers and line managers looking out for symptoms of stress in employees and putting support in place in a timely manner. Behavioural signs of stress in work include mood swings, behaving more twitchy or nervous, loss of motivation, commitment and confidence, increased emotional reactions such as being more aggressive, sensitive or tearful, and turning positives into negatives. And individuals may also experience physical symptoms such as headaches, sleep issues and fatigue, digestive issues such as indigestion, heartburn, constipation and diarrhea, feeling sick, dizzy or fainting, or rashes or itchy skin. And you can read more about the signs and symptoms of stress on the Mind website, and Karen's going to send you a link in the chat now. So if you think that a member of staff may be experiencing stress or burnout symptoms, some actions you could consider are reaching out to the individual, setting aside time to check in and see how they are. Simply asking allows a person the opportunity to open up and talk about how they are feeling if they choose to do so. Often when someone has reached the burnout stage, they may have been working excessive hours. Take time to assess an individual's workload and what their working day or week looks like. If you do become aware that they are working a large number of hours, it is worth investigating the reasons behind this. It can also be worth exploring how and when an individual is using their annual leave. The purpose of annual leave is to give people time away from work to relax and recharge. If you're aware that someone isn't using the annual leave, it is important to understand why and to look at how you can encourage them to use it to help with their well-being. So look into whether it is possible to temporarily adjust an individual's duties or assess whether there is an additional resource that can help the person. For example, can someone help with a particular task? This could ease the load, give them some breathing space and time to refocus. It is vital that you ask individuals what they think will help them rather than making assumptions and implementing measures that you think will help. So carry out a stress risk assessment. This can be useful to help to pinpoint the cause of the person's stress, especially if they are having difficulties in identifying the causes themselves. It can also be a useful tool to create a paper trail to record and demonstrate the support planned and provided to an individual. More information on talking about stress with your staff can be found on the HSE website, and Karen's going to share you a link in the chat now. So additionally, staff can be signposted to internal and external support, such as employee assistance programs, mental health and wellbeing champions, occupational health, or even their own GP. These types of signposts can be particularly beneficial if some of the support they need may be beyond what you can offer as an employer or line manager. For example, an employee has approached you about personal issues that are affecting their mental health. I'm now going to hand you back over to Karen to talk us through a couple of questions we've received here on our Acas. So Karen, over to you.
Thanks, Judith. So the first question that we've received at Acas is, we have a number of staff who now work from home. How can you spot signs of poor mental health in the remote working environment? Our answer to this is that although it may be more challenging to tell whether someone is experiencing a decrease in their mental well-being when you don't see them in person, there are still ways in which you can notice signs. You may notice changes in an individual's tone or voice or appearance. They may appear withdrawn in virtual meetings or be hesitant to have their camera on when they previously have been happy to do that. There may also be changes in their work. For example, you may notice a dip in performance. Deadlines may be missed. Emails could be sent at erratic times, or you may receive feedback from concerned colleagues. Keeping teams cohesive through regular team meetings, one-to-ones, and opportunities to discuss not only work, but also to communicate socially can help foster a positive working environment and create opportunities to notice any changes in staff's well-being. A good manager will notice even the small changes and then decide how they are going to act, which will generally be having an initial supported conversation with that member of staff. Our second question is, we have recently conducted a wellbeing survey and the results have shown that work-related stress is higher amongst our workforce. Now we have this information, what actions can we take to reduce work-related stress? And our answer to this is, you have taken one of the first steps to creating a positive working environment by asking your staff about their mental well-being at work. You should speak to staff to find out what is behind the stress they are experiencing. We would also advise that if you haven't got one already, you develop a clear policy on mental health and stress. This should include training programs for managers and clear channels for people to raise their concerns, as well as the processes for how these concerns will be managed. Ensure you are actively promoting a healthy work-life balance. For example, encouraging employees to use their breaks and take holidays and promoting work-related communications only take place during working hours. You could also consider providing employees with access to support, such as training on stress management techniques and by offering an employee assistance program. I just want to take this time to thank all the advisors on today's webinar who have been answering your questions. Acas are experts in workplace good practice and legislation surrounding mental health, but we do not have medical expertise. For further advice on specific mental health conditions, you may wish to contact the mental health charity Mind, whose details are in your handout. Now I'm going to hand you back to Judith to carry on with the presentation.
Thanks, Karen. So we're now going to look at putting some of that theory into practice with some case studies involving Jules, Delilah, Catherine and Sufyan, who we met earlier. So let's look at Sufyan first. Sufyan was on the bottom right box of the continuum. He has a mental health diagnosis of depression and has poor mental well-being. Sufyan has recently experienced a personal relationship breakdown, which has worsened his depression. He was initially signed off work for 4 weeks by his GP. His manager, Delilah, has received a new fit note for a further 4 weeks. Delilah has tried twice to get in touch with Sufyan by phone for a wellbeing check, and she has also sent an email asking Sufyan to let her know when it would be okay for her to call. There has been no response from Sufyan. So what should Delilah do next? So we can see from the case study that there are several points of good practice when it comes to attempting to contact someone. It can be beneficial where possible to establish early on how and when you will communicate with someone who is off sick. Often a mix of communication can be helpful, so texts, emails and letters should all be considered. However, speaking directly to the individual can often be the most effective way of assessing the more subtle signs of someone's well-being. Offering a variety of methods of direct communication, such as phone calls or meeting face-to-face, either virtually or in person, can help an individual feel more comfortable. Trying to respect the individual's wishes is key. However, this does not necessarily mean absolute acceptance of everything they want. It is crucial to establish that some contact is necessary. The flexibility is in how and when this contact will happen. Contact during an absence is important, and it can ensure that there is a smooth return to work when the member of staff is ready, as it creates an opportunity to discuss and plan a return, what support is needed and any worries or concerns they may have. There are certain things that employers must keep absent employees informed of, for example, job opportunities, restructures and redundancies. You should also discuss what other aspects your employee wants to be kept up to date about whilst absent. For example, they might only want to discuss their well-being, or they may also want to be kept up to date on developments from the workplace. Keeping the person informed can help them to continue to feel part of the team whilst taking time needed away from work. Central to managing long-term absence for mental health is the understanding that many people will withdraw both emotionally and socially, and their self-esteem will suffer. Reassurance that they are a valued member of staff should be explicit, as should clear signposting to any support available. It is vital that managers are regularly made aware of what support is available so they can signpost effectively. So the next case study we're going to look at involves Catherine, who, although does not have a mental health diagnosis, is currently experiencing poor mental well-being. So shortly after Delilah receives Sufyan's second fit note, she receives a text from Catherine. Catherine's text states that she is feeling too unwell to come in due to work-related stress. Delilah is dubious about this, as she knows that Catherine has just returned from a week-long party holiday in Ibiza for her friend's 30th birthday. So whilst there may be reason to suspect the absence is not for the reason Catherine has given, it is important for Delilah to discuss the matter with her in the first instance. It may be that there are work factors that are contributing to Catherine's illness, and it may be that her focus on her social life is a distraction from addressing issues at work. Until Delilah has more information, she will be unable to make an informed decision on next steps. Delilah should contact Catherine to discuss if there is anything she can do to support her in coming back to work and any adaptation she might want on her return. It may also be suitable to carry out a stress risk assessment at this stage. On the other hand, it may be that following a conversation, further investigation is needed. If Delilah still feels that the absence is not genuine, if this is the case, she should proceed with care and follow the key principles, which are going to be outlined on our next slide. So if you are concerned that an absence is not genuine, it should still be treated as though it is until you have clear evidence to the contrary. Offer the same support for the individual you would to anyone else. You should try to understand the reasons behind the workplace stress and undertake a stress risk assessment if appropriate. Follow the good practice guide of maintaining regular contact during the absence and carry out a return to work meeting when your staff member comes back to work. If it transpires after investigation the absence was not genuine, act in line with your workplace policies. For example, you might see this as a potential disciplinary matter. The key point here is that if you take action that demonstrates you think the person is not telling the truth, then conflict and ill feeling is likely to occur. If you follow good practice and your procedures, then you will demonstrate that you are supporting them, but also that you are prepared to ask questions about their absence and explain the impact on the organisation, team, and individual. So our third case study looks at Jules, who had a diagnosis of generalised anxiety disorder. Jules has recently changed medications and is struggling with the adjustment. Whilst managing both Sufyan and Katrin, Delilah has also noted some changes in Jules' behaviour. They have been late to the morning online meeting more than once, and the meeting has been quiet and reluctant to have their camera on. So Delilah invites Jules to a one-to-one meeting and outlines her observations and concerns. Jules confirms they are struggling with the side effects of the new medication they are taking, particularly that it's causing them sleepless nights. Delilah discusses adjustments that could help, for example, adjusting Jules' start time whilst they are experiencing sleep issues and arranging an occupational health referral. She also gives them information and a contact number for the Employee Assistance Programme. Jules says they think Delilah is interfering and they do not need any help from her. So whilst this type of situation can be difficult to manage, it is important to note that if you know or reasonably could have known about a disability, then the duty to provide reasonable adjustments will trigger. So it is important to continue to review matters. If someone is initially reluctant to discuss or accept support, you could consider scheduling a review meeting, offering a wellness action plan. This is an informal document that is completed by the individual with or without the line manager. This could help the individual feel that they have autonomy over the situation, as it allows them to identify signs of poor mental well-being, their triggers and what support they feel they need. It is important that assumptions aren't made about someone's mental health, how it affects their job, and how they manage it. Make sure you're keeping a written record of support that has been offered, whether it has been accepted or not. This means it can be reviewed, but also means a paper trail is created showing what the employer has done to try to provide adjustments and support. Ultimately, you may have to make difficult decisions about an individual who is not willing to or ready to accept help, as you can't force someone to. In a situation where someone isn't open to help, you should let them know that help is available if they do change their mind, and leave the communication open. So finally, let's have a look at Delilah. So we know from the mental health continuum that she does not have a mental health condition and currently has a good level of mental well-being. However, we know Delilah works long hours and is already under some pressure at work. Managing the situations around Jules, Katrin and Sophian will have created extra pressure for Delilah, and we know that this left unchecked can lead to stress. So let's take a look at what Delilah can do to manage her own mental health and well-being. So it is important to remember that there is no one-size-fits-all solution for situations like this, and individuals develop their own coping strategies. Delilah may be finding that it is difficult to manage the rest of her workload on top of the additional support she is providing for those she manages. This is where assessing and restructuring her workload effectively could be beneficial. Delegation done well can be a key tool in this. Stress management techniques can be helpful at times of high pressure. Individuals might use mindfulness. They may exercise or play sport or use mental health app for relaxation. These types of strategies should be discussed widely in organisations, and employers could promote the sharing of tips for stress management among staff. Delilah should make sure that her role is clearly defined, making sure that she doesn't allow her personal time to be taken over by phone calls or catching up on work. Many managers feel the need to be on call for their staff who are going through difficult times. However, it is important that they get rest and recuperation time away from the workplace. This is not only imperative for their own well-being, but it also ensures that they are able to manage the challenges more effectively. Having a trusted peer you can talk to who understands the workplace can be valuable for a person's well-being. This is also true for senior leaders, and they can reach out to their own line managers where possible or seek HR support. External providers of support could include employee assistance programs, HR consultants, and specific charities that can provide information, guidance, and signposting for those supporting individuals with particular mental health conditions. How we look after ourselves is very important, and this can be challenging in the midst of competing work and personal pressures. However, tapping into resources and information available around healthy living and making small, achievable changes to support our own well-being can boost our ability to cope during difficult times. So on the next slide, we will cover some external support resources for mental health and well-being. So the NHS website has lots of resources for individuals to help them access the information and support they need. Mine provide advice and support to anyone experiencing or who is supporting someone who is experiencing mental health issues. They also have specific guidance for workplaces. Rethink help improve the lives of people severely affected by mental health conditions, and they also have local groups and networks. Mental Health at Work have information for line managers, colleagues, and individuals on mental health at work. Access to Work can provide help and financial support with workplace reasonable adjustments. So to summarise what we've discussed today, we've covered an introduction to mental health at work, supporting mental health and well-being at work, pressure, stress and burnout, supporting mental health in practice, and further support. So if you are interested in looking further into the issues discussed or other areas of employment law, I would recommend searching for information under the headings you can see on screen now. As you can see, there is a wide variety of support we can provide in person, online, or over the phone. The bottom left circle mentions our e-learning, which is a useful resource for anyone responsible for improving performance. Our e-learning modules are free and cover a wide variety of employment issues, including health and well-being and flexible working. And I know from previous feedback that case studies are popular, and these are available within this resource. We can also provide employees and employers with free, impartial rights on workplace rights, rules and good practice, and we'd encourage you to contact us on our phone number 0300 123 1100 if you have a query relating to employment. We have a great team of advisors who are trained to offer correct advice, talk about relevant law, and discuss the appropriate options available to you. And our open times are Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. till 6 p.m. Our webinars run regularly, and you can get information via the link in your handout, and we hope you'll join us again soon. We also offer other training options that will equip you with more in-depth knowledge. Our digital courses are delivered via Zoom, and we will give you the opportunity to interact with our knowledgeable trainers to explore some of the challenges you may be facing. We also offer the option of face-to-face workplace training. And to check out the courses we have available, Karen will send you a link in the chat function now. We have lots of training products to choose from. For example, if you enjoy today's webinar and want to understand more about support and mental health, we have a key point session which takes a deeper look into the law and good practice, and also a full day course which takes a practical and in-depth look at support and mental health in the workplace. So please follow the link that Karen's put in the chat for you if you want to do that. Acas can work alongside you to provide tailored support for your workplace. And if this is something you may be interested in, please call us on 0300 123 1150. Our wide range of training can be delivered in person as well as on a digital platform. So we have lots of options that can support you with workplace problems and keep you up to date with good practice, whatever method you prefer. We hope that helps, and we really hope to see you on one of our courses soon.